Hello and welcome back to Community Connections. I'm Lori Matway and I'm joined here by Dr. Greg Savel. We're going to start with questions from Meadowlawn Middle School. Alan, do you have a question for Dr. Savel?
Yes. Why do you think vaping is popular with students these days?
Alan, that's a great way to start our talk today, and I really appreciate you taking the time to ask that question. Well, I think it comes down to the advertising. The people who will benefit from the sales of such devices have come up with wonderful advertising schemes to convince you and your friends that vaping is the cool thing to do, that it's healthy, it's not going to hurt you or the environment, and all the cool kids are doing it. The truth is, we now know that those substances you are inhaling are much worse for you than anything people ever did while smoking. And so it's become popular, but we're hoping to talk to you and all of your friends to help convince folks of how bad it is for you and to find something else to do with their time rather than shorten their lifespan from using these poisonous aerosolized products.
Sierra, do you have a question for Dr. Savel?
Since there's no secondhand smoke in vaping, why can't you vape in restaurants and movies?
There is plenty of secondhand gas of aerosolized nature coming out of those vaping devices and the Juul cigarettes. All those poisonous chemicals that aren't regulated at all. The nicotine that's making you be addicted to those compounds in the first place presents the same health risk to those around you as cigarette smoking did. And in some ways, the people who are close to you but not participating in that activity have a life that's much more at risk than yours itself.
Sammy, do you have a question for Dr. Savel?
Yes. Why do some people get sick from vaping?
Sammy, that's another fantastic question. People do get sick from vaping just like they did from cigarettes because of all the illegal chemicals in there. These chemicals that are inside that which you are inhaling, like nicotine and other products, to make you become addicted, so you want to continue to buy and use and buy and use. So the companies that have made these products make billions and billions of dollars. I hope that you understand the same people who lost money when cigarette sales went down are those folks who are making these products they'd like you to become addicted to now, behind the scenes. And that becomes a real issue. It can cause more asthma, it can cause a shortened lifespan, heart problems, and all kinds of other issues. But you are correct that when people vape, they become sick. But not only you, but those around them as well. Have a responsibility to yourself and others to make the best decision and not get involved in this particular activity in the first place. Thanks so much for asking the question. It was a good one.
And thank you, Greg. It's really a tough topic,
Absolutely.
but I felt like the middle school students, even though they're not participating in vaping, still had questions about it. So I think it's really important that we were able to kind of let them know this is a company, a very wealthy company, making money off of possibly getting our children addicted to something such as vaping, as they did in cigarettes probably
Absolutely.
30, 40 years ago.
For sure.
All right. Well, next we're going to be moving to Northeast High School, just around the corner from Meadowlawn Middle School.
Fantastic.
Daniel, do you have a question for Dr. Savel?
Yes, I actually do. How do you feel vaping has on your overall performance as an athlete?
Daniel, that's a great question. You know, this is important because people realized for years, finally, that when they smoked cigarettes, they didn't perform as well athletically. But it turns out vaping and using Juul cigarettes and these things creates even more of a problem for athletes because these toxic chemicals get into your lungs and decrease your body's ability to exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide in your lungs, meaning that your brain is getting less oxygen and your muscles are getting less oxygen, so you become weaker. You're not able to jump as high. You're not able to run as fast, etc. Not to mention the fact that the oxygen denied to your brain means you cannot think as well, making you even more likely to use those products again and have that problem even get worse. So the point is, don't take up these kind of habits in the first place. Why would you work out to become the best athlete you can be and then ruin all of that by using these poisonous substances, which is only going to take your strength and speed away? Thanks so much for being a part of this event today. I appreciate your question.
Rianne, do you have a question for Dr. Savel?
I do. Do you think that vaping interrupts a student's sleeping habits and thinking process?
Rianne, This perhaps is the most important question. It has been well documented that a human's brain is not fully formed until about 26 to 27 years of age. And do you know who knows that? The manufacturers who make these compounds to which they'd love for you to become addicted. So people who vape or use Juul cigarettes, etc., have nicotine and other compounds, some of which we haven't even discovered yet that they are using, get into your brain. They reform new pathways, making you think in a different way that makes you want to use their products for the rest of your life, no matter the dangers. So that is the worst problem of all. We had questions earlier from middle schoolers, and it makes me so sad to think that even younger kids are using these products now, which will remap their neural pathways, making them addicts for life. And these Juul cigarettes and vaping compounds become the new gateway drug. Those things that are going to make people more likely to partake in other activities that are illegal, or perhaps lead them down the road to opiate use. There's all these studies now that show there's the relationship between people who vape and those who use other illicit compounds by a factor of 7 to 10 to 1, meaning you are 7 to 10 times more likely to use other compounds because your neural pathways were remapped by these compounds just in something you believe is innocent as a Juul cigarette or some other way to vape. Thanks so much for asking that question. I hope it's been of value to you and all the others watching this. And I hope that you'll take this information and bring it back to your friends and your peers so they can make better choices for themselves and their friends.
Cameron, do you have a question for Dr. Savel?
Yes. What are the effects of vaping versus smoking cigarettes?
Cameron, thanks for taking the time to ask that question. This is very important. I'm going to tell you that I believe vaping is more dangerous. Number one, the vapor is filled, and these aerosolized products are filled with compounds we don't even understand yet. You know, there's a lot of companies with billions of dollars at stake who want you to be addicted to these compounds. They know how to show you a TV commercial. They know how to put something in a magazine you read. And they know how to do and say just the right things to make you think, wow, this is the cool thing to do. Here's something else. Cameron, you realize that some people who smoke cigarettes are forced not to smoke in certain situations because the smell is so offensive. And these billion-dollar companies have found a way to make these aerosolized compounds smell better. So they're accepted in more locations. People can get away with participating where they couldn't smoke cigarettes. So what happens is you're doing it more often and you're exposing people to the dangers of the exhalation products even more. So what I tell you is compare them if you want. But I believe vaping is even more dangerous than cigarette smoking, and we know how bad that is for you. So I want to thank you very much for taking the time to ask that question. Some don't watch this program, perhaps some are not here today. I hope you'll take the answer I've given you and the information, spread it to your friends. If you can tell a few people about the dangers, maybe we can stop people from becoming addicted to this horrendous new trend that is putting all of our lives in danger. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Savel. Great advice for students. Do you have any advice for parents if they think their child may be vaping, or what they should look for, symptoms to look for?
Well, let me tell you, I have a lot of parents come into the office, and you know what happens is they don't want to talk about these things because they're afraid if they tell their kids something they don't want to hear, they'll walk away and do it anyway. I know that we think about this as a cliche, but you know, we have to remember when you bring children into this world, it's your responsibility to be their parents, even when it's not convenient or easy to do so. You know, it's one thing if your kid's 35 years old, but when you have school-age children, you better find out the difference between raising those kids by being a parent and by being a friend. And sometimes you're a better friend by being a parent. If you suspect your kid is using these products or their friends are, get in their face and say something to them. Show them the information that tells them this stuff is dangerous and you have to do something about it. Right. You know, sitting still is a problem because, again, one of the biggest issues we have today is about gateway drugs. We talk about kids who smoke marijuana, and that may lead to harder drugs. I lost 3 kids in my own practice last year to opiate addiction and IV drug use. And we know that these vaping products, because they contain nicotine and other addicting compounds, can lead to other use of illicit substances as well, which could lead to death. And so when you talk to parents and think, maybe it's worth the effort to say something to your kids. Vaping today, oxycodone tomorrow. That isn't a far-fetched comment at all. So by getting in their face today, you might help them not make a worse decision that could bring about the early ending of their life a few months later.
Excellent advice for parents. Be the parent, not the friend.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So when we come back, we're going to talk about a partnership to deal with health and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.